Hello, this is the final recording in a series of 4 about formatting your final assessment documents in KCB205 Professional Communication. It's time to look at visuals. A picture really does paint 1,000 words. It's much easier to look at a trend line on a graph rather than just talking about it. But again, if you're using a visual, you need to introduce it. You cannot just let it stand alone. State why it's there and what it's showing. Now, I've already gone through these 2 slides, but when talking about visuals, I'm talking about figures and tables. So remember, they need to be identified in the front matter. It goes without saying that any visual should be clear, accurate, and professional. Choose the visual that will help make your point. For example, tables can help you show exact figures, whereas a flowchart can help you illustrate a process or a procedure. Make sure any table is clearly labeled. Also, that the figures not only add up, but also line up. And I'm talking about lining up the numerals, not the dollar signs. This one here can be a bit misleading. A few words on ethics. You've probably heard the line lies, damn lies, and statistics. Well, I think you can add visuals here too. Think about how accurately your information is being presented. This is a truncated graph. See that the y-axis doesn't start at 0. That zigzag is something used to show this. But a truncated graph can sometimes make data look more impressive than it actually is. How different would the graph look if the y-axis did start on 0? Also check out the numbering of the axis and how this distorts the perceived increase. Looks very different here, doesn't it? So again, be careful with including visuals. Your reader, the client, will be looking for accuracy. Avoid chart junks. It might seem like a very good idea at the time, but it gets in the way. The coloring of these glasses is a problem. Also, the thickness of the bottom of the glasses just makes it difficult to read. You can go through this list on your own, just to think about visuals and their purpose. In particular, think about what might work best in your document. What will be the best way to show certain relationships or your brilliant ideas? I'm also going to say again, be careful with Gantt charts. Sometimes students try to squeeze too much information onto these charts and then, on top of it all, fit it on one page. And even if that page is in landscape, the data will become very small. So make sure any visuals you use are accessible and readable. Any visual you do use, you will have to include some particular information, including a clear title and a number. And the title should also include what it is actually showing. With graphs in particular, be careful with shading. If your client is, for example, printing it in black and white, it can be very difficult to see. You also need to state where the information comes from. So just like a quote, you must display the source. In other words, you must always cite. As far as titles go, you can choose between functional or story titles. It's always good to be specific, but again, it depends on what you're trying to convey. Maybe for your purpose in KCB205, all you need is the first example. You might prefer a storyline, and that's all right. But if you're using that, they still need to be concise. As mentioned a couple of times, you can't let a figure or table stand alone. You must say something about it and draw attention to it. See the top example. See figure 6. That would be written in text. Now, that's better than listed below. There could be lots of things listed below. Make it easy for your reader. That is one reason why you're numbering the tables and figures, so that you can refer to them in text. See the second example. You don't need to include the title as well. It's fine to say the data in table 10 shows. That's enough to get the reader to table 10. Remember, I'm talking here about in-text reference to visuals. And put the figures as soon as possible after your reference. And if by chance your figure and table end up on the next page, then include a page number to avoid any confusion. So before you show the visual, you are going to mention it, and after the visual in your document, you are going to summarize what it shows. And through this summary, you can add value through some evaluation. In summary, identify the visual, insert the visual, elaborate or evaluate the visual. That's the idea. But if spacing is going to be a problem, combine step 1 and 3. Okay, this concludes our 4-part series about formatting the assessment documents in KCB205 Professional Communication. Remember, these will be available on Blackboard as reference point, and we will also have time to elaborate on some of these points in the final team consultations of this semester. Thank you for listening.